So we're going to start with a short quiz for an icebreaker in the beginning. Please use your phones or laptops and log into menti.com and use this code. Shady, deep web, hacking. Oh, TTP is a good one. We're going to talk about it today. So yes, thank you for your answers. Yes, threat intelligence does touch everything that you mentioned here and more. And today I'm going to show you a glimpse of, let's say, one kind of threat intelligence. So today we're going to talk about DeathStalker. It's a threat group. I'm going to talk with you about the research I did almost a year ago. And the campaign dealt with this group that was targeting European and South American financial organizations. So today we're going to talk about what is the threat landscape and why it's important to be familiar with it. We're going to talk about one threat intelligence platform, which is a Codex developed by Deloitte. We're going to talk about DeathStalker, the threat group behind the campaign, and its technical characteristics. And in the end, we're going to give some mitigations. So threat landscape, it's a way to look at your threats, both internally and both externally. When you do it externally, you look about the threat actors that are targeting your sector, your country. The motivation can be varied. It can be for espionage, and it can be for financial gain. But in the end, they look for assets related to your organization, and those assets are internal assets. So you have the external view, you have the internal view. So when you analyze your threat landscape, you need, again, to look both externally and both internally inside the organization's infrastructure. When you look at your infrastructure, you need to first map your network and define what are your crown jewels. Crown jewels are the most important pieces in your network. It can be a server that includes a PII. It can be a database that's in charge of all the transactions and keeps all the secret information in your organization, and so on and so on. And of course, you have to look at it in the eyes of a threat actor and look for ways to penetrate it. This is why vulnerability management is mentioned here. You do that by using tools and monitoring tools. And if you do go through the best practices, it can be better, and it also will be more beneficial when you do the response. Using other tools like EDR and IPS and IDS and so on, those can be also used to detect lateral movement and persistence once the threat actor is already inside the network. One more thing about the threat landscape is to, as I mentioned a bit before, which threat actors are looking at you and targeting your organization. So we have so many different kinds of threat actors, but I'm going to mention here only four actually. The fourth one will be later. APTs are generally focused on espionage. You have some unique cases of North Korea, which their economy is based on the cyber attacks, so this is why they are more financial gain motivated. But generally, APTs, they will target sectors like government, defense, critical infrastructure. So if your organization belongs to one of these sectors, so you need to pay attention to that kind of a threat. Cyber criminals, they don't matter which sector you are. I mean, they will do anything they can to attack and to extort and to gain money. So doesn't matter, they are a threat to all sectors. Hacktivists would look for a media coverage, so they would try to attack the more sexy sectors and more the ones that will attract more attention. So this is why they will probably go and look for the government or also defense. in the Russia-Ukraine war, they attacked the oil and gas sectors and shut down their websites. So anything that they can do to promote their political agenda, they will do. Environmental ones will also attack the oil and gas because, according to their point of view, they are hurting the environment. So yes. And we are talking about vulnerabilities, and of course, 0 days, 1 days, 1 days are vulnerabilities that are exploited right after the public disclosure, and also trending vulnerabilities either on dark web and either on other clear web parts. And looking at all of that and combining that with the threat intelligence, it gives you a much better view, and you can use that view to prioritize the patching. Exploit kits and automation speed up the attacks, and especially with the AI today. So threat actors develop vulnerabilities much quicker. So it's crucial to look at this area when you do the analysis of the threat landscape. So now I'll give you a walkthrough of Codex, a short one. Codex is a search engine that discovers malware patterns and characteristics. It was developed by Deloitte 9 years ago, released as open source. It ingests feeds from VT and other sandboxes and helped me as an analyst to do the search, the correlation, and it also helps us in terms of behavior comparison. What's really important about threat intelligence platforms and in general is that intelligence should be reported and shared with the SOC and hunt team, so the organization can be proactive and not only reading reports and doing nothing with them. It's really helpful to integrate it with the other teams, so the organization would be more vigilant in either reacting to threats or even trying to minimize in advance the effect. This is the homepage of Codex. You see down below there is a pie chart of family sandboxes today. This pie chart shows types of malware family, malware. That Codex has an internal sandbox, and it does the attribution. You see names like Pony, Redline, Still C. You see even Lockbit here. Lockbit is actually a very active ransomware group, so it also has files today here. You see at the app there is an advanced search. I'm going to talk about it now. I was talking about that Codex can show us, you can look for so many different patterns and strings. So this is just an example of what you can search for macro. You see even the macro name, macro path, the VBA, so many different kinds of things that you can search via Codex. We also have here a way to do code similarities, which is a way to, let's say, if you tackle or you encounter an executable, but it has no attribution. So Codex can help you to a comparison to all the other hashes it has in the database. And after the task is done, so you can see if it's related to any other malware, if it's borrowing some malware code from other known malware, and act accordingly. Now we're going to talk about the campaign. This campaign started with a docm. Docm, it's an automated macro in it. So the campaign started with a phishing email that was contained docm. The docm is a file, it's an Office file that has a macro in it, and it's executed automatically. Then it dropped 4 malicious files, and then 2 files contacted a dead drop resolver. Dead drop resolver is a way, it's quite a unique TTP technique of threat actors. So what it does is the threat actors host a code inside the public website, usually known ones, and then it's obfuscated, and then upon encoding and pop the encoding, so you get the C2 configuration. We're going to talk about it later. It's a stealthy way to obtain C2 configuration. So the campaign started with this file. This screenshot, I know it looks, you see it like it's from an old machine, but it's one of Codex's old VM. It worked also in newer machines. I just prefer, sometimes I like to be nostalgic, so look at these kind of files. So the document was written in Spanish, and it dealt with rules for how organizations exhibit their financial statement to be officially compared with other organizations globally. Why I'm telling you this? Because there is an organization behind these kind of statements, and it's called the International Accounting Standards Committee, and in Spanish it's known as NIC. If you see in the upper right corner of the document, you see NIC. So I concluded from that the targets are financial organizations operating in countries that their official language is Spanish. And I checked for you guys, there are 21 states that has Spanish in their official language. Most of them are South American, but we have some European countries as well. So this is the target. So you probably might think, wait, Yoav, why do we care about macro comments? Because Microsoft introduced like 2 years ago a feature to block macros, right? It's called mark of the web. And mark of the web, what it does, it adds a tag to the document and showing that the user behind the scenes that it was downloaded from the internet, and then it opens the file in protected view. In protected view, macros don't run, and the user has to manually enable content and let the macro run. But we're talking about automatic execution. So how mark of the web can go with automatic execution? Think about it for a minute. We'll come back to it later. I'm gonna talk about how I started the investigation and then come back to the campaign. So we were mentioning Codex, and this is a screenshot from Codex. I did a lot of searches back that day and found this hash. And you see that Codex attributed it to DeathStalker. And I thought, wow, this is a cool name, and I'm not familiar with this name. So as a threat intelligence analyst, we have so many names. Probably you're familiar with Lazarus, or the bears one that related to the Russian, and the kittens, the Iranian. But from time to time, you encounter cool name like DeathStalker, and I said, okay, this is cool. Let's dig in. And you also see here at the right side that is the file type is Office. Related is part of Office suite. So I said, okay, let's see who is DeathStalker. So DeathStalker is a threat group for hire, which is really rare. We were mentioning before APTs, cyber criminals, activists, but threat group for hire, this is quite unique. And their first reported activity was in 2017. So 8 years ago, but there are also traces for activity in 2012, so 13 years ago. Imagine how much time they had to develop their tools. They are experienced group, they develop their own tools, and they also leverage open source. They usually target the financial sectors, which is, again, suitable to the campaign, and also legal sectors. And they do it for hire, but they're only looking in the angle of obtaining information, for espionage angle. So that's what they are doing. Now we're going to talk about the TTPs. So in the last few years, let's say 6-7 years, we are seeing more and more security organizations, security researchers. They are more focusing on the techniques instead of hunting the single IOC. So when I just started as threat intelligence, so we were chasing after IPs, after domains, try to look for that as points, and really focus on that. But from time to time, and as this domain started to be more and more advanced, one level up or even 2 levels up, so we started to look for patterns. This is why we have the TTPs, Tactics, Techniques, and Procedures, developed by a non-profit organization called MITRE. So MITRE aggregates so many TTPs and try to, using these kind of techniques, to predict what threat actor will do. Let's say that we have now DeathStalker, so they have like a profile of that threat actor, and see according to past activities, open sourced ones, because these are the ones they are using for the database. So they are looking at these campaigns, analyze them, and see what were the most used, or not most, but all the tactics used in those campaigns, and create a profile. So this is also what I do in my job. So when I analyze a campaign, so at the end, I'm looking for all the TTPs and I'm writing down and explaining them. And our clients really love it because it helps them to be more focused on this level and not the lower level. So we are talking about the campaign timeline. So we had the phishing, we had the doc-m, and that doc-m dropped 4 malicious files. One of them is called svhost. Svhost is really familiar to a legitimate process called SVC host, responsible for shared services. So this is why they named it. We have, and I'm going to show you that. You see, we have SV host, upper side of the process, and you have below the SVC host, the legitimate one. So threat actor executed them both. You see next to the upper process, you see a random name before the SV host. You see YTJR. So the threat actor renames a lot of files during this campaign to random names. So the target wouldn't react to that, maybe. So there are some actors that do that. You see in the middle also, there is an Explorer exe running. So I did a lot of research. I'm not sure precisely why they ran it, but since it's a legitimate process, so they can use it for multiple reasons, for persistence and defense evasion techniques. So a lot of reasons. I wasn't sure entirely, but what is the SV host is doing? There's a keylogger capability using direct input, and also it is responsible for communications. It is communicating with the dead drop resolver, and it also has some evasion techniques in it. Let's move on to the next malicious file. So we had svhost.exe. We have now svhost.zip. Why both? So the threat actor wanted to stay persistent as much as they can. This is like usually the ultimate goal: stay persistent as much as you can. So this is why they also had this zip file. That zip file contained in it the main payload again, and they save it in another place in the system. So it's mainly for persistence. So we had 4 files, and we talked about 2. Now we're going to talk about the third one. Third one is lsas.exe. lsas is a legitimate process, a legitimate feature inside the Windows, is responsible for all the OS credentials. So threat actors usually access this one, and they dump lsas memory files for obtaining credentials. This is not the case here, but they really named it like that again so the target wouldn't ignore that file because it's a known file. So it's there. What lsas did is actually it was named as lsas, but it's again another copy of the main payload. The fourth file was an LNK. I think Daniel mentioned LNK as a rare file for attacks. So they use LNK as well. LNK is a shortcut file, and it gives threat actors a lot of possibilities. That file pointed back at the DCOM, and we're talking about mark of the web, MOTW bypass. So I assess with medium confidence, I would say even high confidence, that combining the LNK with the automatic execution, with that, they bypassed mark of the web, and the target did activate the malicious macro inside the dock. That LNK also opened the shell. It communicated with the dead drop resolver. The dead drop resolver, as I was talking before, it's again a rare technique. So what it does is that they use public services like YouTube and even Google Plus. Yes, I even saw Google Plus before it got canceled and shut down by Google. But they do use these kind of public services and host the code over there. They usually look for really old ones. I saw a few times old YouTube channels. So they contain the encoded commands. And then when the malware contact that dead drop resolver, they decode the commands, and that helps to get the C2 configuration. Why? It's a stealthy way to do that, and it's harder to find these kind of channels. And since the communication with the C2 is really crucial in the campaign, it would be wise to do this kind of technique. And it's also more difficult to take down these links because, again, old, and it's also sometimes it's even hard to take down from issues and rights of that. So they use those kind of public services. I'm going to now show you registry keys related to the attack. So most of the important ones in this attack, in this campaign. So the first 7 are related to the discovery phase of the campaign. So discovery phase talks about when affected actor is already inside the network. So it tries to look for interesting files, try to look for interesting directories. This is why you see a file directory, you see max file size, you see file tracing. So it enumerates files and looking for relevant ones. And the last one, the last registry key over here, you see current version run, and then again random name. So the malicious macro commands renamed a lot of malicious random names, for the malicious files. And what it does here, the run ones here is a run key. Run key is a classic way to stay persistent. So what it does, it saves that malicious payload in the startup folder. And upon every reboot, the system would go to the startup folder and execute what's in there. So it continue to run even after reboot. Okay, so for the end, we're talking about mitigations. What we do to track these kind of techniques in the campaign. We can use heuristics and behavior detection for that LNK and downloaded files. We can hunt for legitimate processes, impersonated ones, for those legitimate processes, just like we had the SV host that was looking like SVC host. We can, in some organizations, they restrict even non-corporate uploads and downloads from over the internet. So it's really harsh hardening, but it's possible for, let's say, some machines. And of course, since we saw phishing here, so awareness, it's crucial. And so many ways to trick users, and from time to time, it's good to do these refreshments and talk about phishing vectors, and even this one, or education and awareness. So to wrap it up, I'm gonna talk quickly about what we talked about today. So how threat intelligence TI is important when it is integrated with other teams. Combined, it's a powerful, very powerful. We talked about Codex, the Deloitte system, and you saw a glimpse of it. And of DeathStalker unique approach about it is a threat group for hire, and what it does with the dead drop resolver and all its campaign. So just sit if you have any more questions now. Don't be shy.